Hello everyone, and welcome to another scrapbook layout process video where I'm going to talk about how I have manipulated a couple of photos so that they are not a true size photo, and how to hide a particular photo that I probably wouldn't put on the top part of my layout, but I sort of want to include it because it's got a funny story behind it. So you can see I've got some photos here with the creative design team. This was our day trip to Whistler and back, and we saw some beautiful scenery on the way, and I'm a little bit excited about scrapping these photos because this means I only have two double page spreads left, and the front page and the back page of this album. One of the double page spreads is at the Butchart Gardens though, and I keep putting it off because I've got a lot of photos to choose from. So that one is going to be coming very soon. So I'm just laying out my photos, how I think I'm going to put them on my page. I'm going to cut these ones down so they can be hidden behind this 6x8 photo here. And it's a little bit larger than a 6x8. You can see that here. So I'm going to mat this one by putting it onto some cardstock, and I'm going to create a little pocket for these photos to go under. And I wanted to talk to you particularly about these two photos here. So this one here was going to be a 5x7 photo, and you can see it's not quite that. It's 4.5 by 7 inches. So I have a program that I can edit this in, but you can print your photos as a 5x7 and then trim them. Same goes for this one. This was going to be a 6x4 photo, but I have manipulated it because I wanted to get rid of the foreground in both of these. There was a lot of the pathway in front of here, and the width of the photos here called for a standard sort of size, but the height of them didn't. So if you're looking at a sketch and it's saying that you need to put a 5x7 photo or a 6x4 photo on the sketch, you can manipulate the sketch and your photos so that it's going to look pleasing when you print them. Rather than having all this dead space here of this pavement, I have just trimmed it down a little bit, and I've put this with a white border when I've printed. But if you're printing normally, you can print it as a 5x7, trim it down, and then mat it onto a white piece of cardstock. So I've done the same thing with this one. This was going to be a 6x4 photo into an A4 sheet. You can do this on Canva. You can do this with a lot of printing apps now. So it just depends on what you have and what you can use. But I brought both of these photos onto an A4 sheet so that I could then manipulate them and get rid of the dead space here, so the focus is coming in on the photos themselves. Shrinking this down and keeping the aspect ratio of the photo would not have worked. I still would have had that foreground there. So even if I printed this as a 6x4, as you can see this one here, just imagine this part here would be just full of these sort of boring pavers here. So I didn't want that at all. I wanted my focus to be on these photos. And it was fun to go to Whistler and see the Olympic rings and where the big ski jump and everything was. Basically, there wasn't that much snow, but there were people still going up and snowboarding on runs. And most of the time while we were here, it was basically just visiting the shops. And of course, I had to try beaver tails, which I absolutely love. Julie didn't want me to leave for Canada without trying these beaver tails, and they are absolutely delicious. So I need beaver tails to come to Australia. It's basically like a donut type dough that is rolled out really flat, so it's in the shape of a beaver tail, and you can get different flavors, but we just went with the cinnamon sugar ones, and they were just so yummy. And I've got a photo of us in the actual store, and you might be looking at this one. This is the one that I was going to talk to you about. So a bit of a funny story behind this one. My son was a little bit worried about me bumping into bears when we were going hiking and all that sort of thing. So I posed for the girls with this statue here in Whistler, and then I sort of posed for another photo, and Katie worked her magic with making me into a sticker and putting me at the front looking like I'm running away, but it looks like my arm's been chewed off here by a bear. So I did send this to my son. I am going to put this in my album, but I'm going to hide this photo behind here. So I am going to cut these parts so that I can put them behind here along with my journaling as well. So I've got this sort of laid out how I want it to appear on my page. So these I'm going to stagger because even though it's the same sort of vantage point, there are different photos here. And Julie, of course, being Julie, she climbed up into one of these rings when we were posing behind them, and that made for a bit of a fun photo, as well as our more formal shot. So these ones I'm going to put aside for now, and I'm going to bring in some white willow paper and also some pattern paper. So I have been thinking about what I'm going to choose to scrapbook this, and I have chosen to use some papers from Take to the Sky. Now this one here, I'm going to run all the way down my page like this. I am going to overlap this one just a little bit and trim off some of that white border there, because it's not going to be the same height as what I've got here, because I print my photos most of the time with a border. I'm just going to bring in plain cardstock first. I think I'm going to mat these onto black. I think this will work quite well. But I am going to do a little bit of trimming to make the borders around these, the white borders, all the same. And then this one is going to go sort of semi over top, and then I'll have my items snuck in behind here. So the first paper that I thought of is from Take to the Sky. It's got the aeroplanes on this side, but I thought this would be really good. I love this grey tone, and it's got this pattern that sort of replicates the paver type feel here. So I'm thinking I want to put just a little bit of this coming across here. So I'm just fitting this out, and because I know I want to mat this on a black strip here, I think I need to finish off this edge with a black as well, just to give it some grounding to this side. But I do want to add in some other paper. So I have some strips left over from other layouts that I've done with the Take to the Sky paper. This matte paper I think was my favorite one. I know that I have used this several times. So I am just going to put that there and see if I like the look of that. I think the check paper might be too strong. I think it's going to pull focus. I'm focusing on this check here rather than on my photos themselves. So then I thought maybe I could bring in some of the cloud paper, and this has got a grey check on the other side, and it's from Take to the Sky as well. I quite like that, but I just think it's not quite the right fit for these photos. Yes, there are clouds in the sky and everything, but once again, my focus is going to this cloud pattern rather than to my photos. So I'm going to pull these two away and look in another pack. And I know that I want to bring in some blue because we're all in blue jeans. I've got a blue jumper on, and I think this will work, and sort of the mountains have a bluish tone to them as well. So I've looked in Country Lace, and I have these three patterns here. I think this one will do the same thing that the check and the sky paper did. I think it's going to be too busy and it's competing too much with this geometric pattern here. I know I'm leaning towards this one, but I just want to audition everything just to make sure that I'm making the right choice. This one could work if I didn't have this gorgeous pattern here. On the other side of this is a peach sort of doily look. I'm thinking this is going to be the winner, and I'm going to tuck most of this underneath here because I just want a portion of it. I love the blue and the grey together, so I can see this will work really well. I did have the blue sky paper there and thought about it for a little while I was trying to work out what I was going to do. I just think this suits these photos so much better. So I'm going to trim these pieces down. I'm going to trim down my white mats that I've got around my photo because I think I'm going to mat all my photos in black, and that will tie in the black elements as well. And I want a large piece for here. I'm going through all my leftover pieces. So I think I'm going to mat this one with the black. I'm going to have some strips of this on the other side. Got a little piece of this left over, so I'm just going to tuck this here. So what you want to do when you're picking paper for your photos, you want it to complement your photos and not overwhelm your photos. And that's why I've gone with these two rather subdued patterns. And this denim type pattern is not competing with this geometric pattern that looks like pavers. And these two choices with the black mats will make my photos pop, I think. So I've got the foundation part of the pages all adhered down, and now I'm just positioning my photos. So this one is stuck down on a continuous mat, and this one I'm going to have partially over the photos, and I've created a little housing behind here because I want to create some sort of pull-out tag sort of elements to go behind here. So what I've done is I have trimmed these pieces down to fit my photos, and then I've got a 1/2 inch strip across the top, just in several pieces of this pattern paper that coordinates with the Take to the Sky kit. So how I do that is just build up some strips of paper. I have quite a few off-cut pieces of white paper. I don't want this as high as foam tape because my album is getting quite full, but I have staggered the height of this. So on this side, which is going on the left, I've stacked 4 sheets of cardstock. This side I have stacked 3, and I've got a little stopping point here so that when I put this over top of here, because this side is a little bit more built up, that's just got the 3 stack of strips under there, and this side has 4. Now before I adhere this down, I just want to make sure that that is going to be high enough for these photos, and it's not. So I need to add some more tape on here. And the off-cut pieces I use are sometimes things from my print and cut. So I will do that and use up those strips rather than just throw them away. Because it draws the lines on for the guides, I just find that I may as well keep the strips. I can stamp sentiments and other things on there. But I am just going around these with my off-cut pieces, and they don't even have to be the same width or length. I just want to make sure there's no adhesive on this edge here that will catch on my little photo or my tags and things like that I'm going to put on there. So now I'm going to check on the height of this to see if I can slip 3 things comfortably behind there. Still needs to be a little bit higher. So I'm going to build that up until I've got the right height, just as you saw me do then. And then I've got my 2 photos over on this side. So these are my feature photos. They're the ones that I wanted to highlight the most. It's far less busy around all of these areas. This is more photo heavy. These are the supporting photos of our day at Whistler. These ones to me are the hero type ones. So what I've done is cut some circles because I want to put some elements on here. Now, when I was looking at my grey papers, I didn't quite have the tone that I wanted to go with this. So you can see the white is a little bit too harsh. The greys are a little bit too solid. So I have created my own. Now this one is going to slide under here, but I'm going to trim this part away so that there's only just a little portion of it coming out because I don't want it interfering with this area here where my tag sort of elements are going to pop out. So I'm just going to show you how I did this very, very quickly. I have used the all around it dies, and around the 3-inch or 4-inch type circle seem to be the right size for this. You can see I've got cricket elements on here that didn't quite work out when I was doing my cricket cuts. I do keep things if I think I'm going to be able to use them for something. So I'm just going around the outside of this. I sort of tapped off a little bit. I have it on that one there. I'm going to hide that one. So I do need to tap off more and just bring a little bit of colour in. And this is just going to give a little bit of a rustic look to these. I don't want it to be a perfectly smooth blend. I just want a little bit of grey on there just to sort of rough up the white a little bit and give it a more rustic sort of look. So this one, I'm going to hide this element here somewhat. So that's going to go over on this side here. Now I've got my circles on there. I want to bring in some embellishments. I have cut the title Whistler out of the alphabet a la mode dies. That's going to go across the top here. And I've also cut some trees from, and I'll just bring in this set. I haven't used this set before, and I did purchase it mainly for the dies in it, but I also quite like some of these sentiments and everything on here because I think they're going to work really well with scrapbooking layouts. So let the journey begin, let the adventure begin. I have actually used this Just Breathe and Take It Slow. I've used this one and this stamp set on another layout from this same trip. I could cut this part out from my stamp and just have Amazing, and then there are the tree stamps, but I have mainly used the dies, and I want to show you how these dies work because they're a little bit exciting. So the row of trees here and the mountain part here, they don't actually cut the bottom section. So what I have done is cut this out on a 12-inch strip and then just kept going down. So I've wound that through and then I've lined this back up again, wound it through again. I have actually cut this piece. I didn't mean to do that before I showed you what I was doing. Let me just turn this so it matches back up. So you can see that's the next portion of the cut there. And then I have put that in again to finish it off. And I've worked out exactly what I need to go across my page. So I'm thinking I'm going to have one piece coming here. I think I'm going to have this over top. I'm not going to try and put the mountain peak over the top of this because that's being built up. I'm just going to move this off to the side. And then I thought I might put one across here. I think I've got a bit of pink on my grey brush. It's come through on this one. That's okay. I'm going to hide most of that. It's sort of just a place to hold my elements that I'm going to put there. And then I have the trees. So I did exactly the same thing with this. So on my 12-inch piece here, you can see I didn't quite go all the way to the end. I have cut the first piece and then lined it up to cut the second piece. So you can line that up to go all the way along a 12-inch piece. And then you sort of get a twofer because this is the piece that is cut away from here, but you could also use this side as well. There's no reason why you couldn't. It just gives exactly the same sort of look as what this one does. So don't throw this piece away, store that where it might come in handy. So I'm thinking that this is going to go across the bottom of my mountains, and then I've got another one for this side over here. I want to adhere these down before I adhere down my photos. I'm just sort of positioning that somewhat. Might have to go up just a little bit, and then this circle can come up a little bit, and then I'm going to have some of the die cut trees from this exact same set. So Scenic Adventure, these double trees here and this tree, I'm going to put those along here, and then I'm going to sneak some in over here as well. I cut myself a few little extra ones. I might not need them. Now, when I'm looking at this, this is sort of floating a little bit, so I think I need some strips just to anchor them. So I have this 1/2-inch strip here. I've got a few of these of the water topography paper that I have left over from Take to the Sky. Now, that one is while stocks last at the moment. I'm going to have to, I think, order another piece. But I think that's going to finish this off nicely. And then I can put a little strip here for these trees to sit on, and then cut another little strip for these ones over here to sit on. And that's why I've used some of that topography paper on the top of one of these tags here. So this is going to work really well, and I've got to dress my tags up a little bit more. So I'm going to do a little bit of adhering. I do love the softness that just the little bit of Smoky Slate ink has given to these white circles here. So I think this is all going to come together really nicely when I finish all of this off. So I'll be back in a moment once I've adhered these down and show you how I'm going to add some journaling spots on my little tag elements that are going to slide under here. So I'm just about done now for the whole entire page. I'm going to bring that in a moment. I am going to do some stamping with these journal lines using the Just a Note set. Now I am thinking about putting them on a little note tag piece like that, but I'm going to do this stamping with this first, and I'm using that same Smoky Slate ink. I don't want the lines to be totally solid, so what I'm doing is just inking this up. I'm going to stamp off once, twice, 3 times, and then lining up a cling stamp. I have put this so that it's nice and straight up against the edge of my block here, so that I can look through and I know that it's not photopolymer, that you can achieve a straight result if you line the stamp up using the edge of the block as a little bit of a guide. So you can see I've stamped off quite a lot. I haven't tried to make it all nice and smooth, and I think that's going to work quite well. I have done the other two, but now I'm trying to decide if it's going to make it look a little bit too busy, and I think it will, because this is all nice and straight, clean lines. I've got the rounded corners from the top piece here. I don't think I'm going to use this die. I really do want to use it because it does give the effect of a piece of paper ripped out of a notebook, but I think it's just going to be a little bit too busy. So these are going to be the tags that are going to slot down in behind this piece here. Now I have put one of those note cards on the back of both the ones with the photos, and I've got an additional one just on a plain note card that I've got here. So this is going to be my general journaling about going around Whistler, and I think what I'm going to have to do is put one on the back as well, because I think I'm going to have a little bit to say about it. So for this one here, I've got my little note card, because this is going to be a separate story within the story of our day at Whistler. I'm going to talk about what we saw and what we did around Whistler on my main note card, but I've got sub-stories to tell about this photo here with Julie really wanting me to try beaver tails, and the rest of the CDT girls too, because I don't think all of us had actually tasted them before. And then I know my photo is sideways with this one, but that's okay because this is an interactive thing. So when you pull this out, you will be able to see this photo. And I wanted the landscape orientation because I didn't want to cut out too much of the bear here. So I'm going to tell the story about the girls making me and do these weird poses so they could take photos of me supposedly running away from a bear. So that's going to go onto the back of that one. So I've got this Just a Note stamp set and it's got best ever. So that's what I'm going to stamp on top of this beaver tails one. So I think it's fun when you're doing like a day out somewhere, if you've been traveling, to actually tell the little sub-stories behind the adventures. So I am just going to align this up and stamp that somewhat in the middle. So I've got best ever here because I think beaver tails were my favourite snack or takeaway food that we got the whole time we were away. And Just a Note is going to go on top of this one here, just so I can explain what's actually happening in this photo. So I have two sub-stories to tell within our day out to Whistler. These are going to slide in and I'm going to alternate them so that when they go in here, they will stick up just a little bit. And then because I have top-low protectors, I don't need to cut a slit in my memory protector here. I'll be able to reach in and read that. And this is the final layout. So you can see I extended this mountain sort of range across to the left page here. And I didn't mention the colours that I used. This is cloud cover. This is Mossy Meadow. And just seen, I've got the true side of cloud cover here and the light side of cloud cover here with my mountains. But once that goes in, I don't think I'll bother picking all this off, although I probably could. But I think you can see all the detail that impresses into these cuts here when you use the dies for the mountains and also on the trees. I love how that works. And yes, my Mossy Meadow, I've got a darker one there. And I don't mind the fact that I've got two different colours on this. And I landed on cloud cover. I was trying for Secret Sea, and this is the true side of Secret Sea, and this is the light side because I thought it sort of matched in with the tones that I've got here, but it was just too dark on the page. So I decided that cloud cover would work with that. So now I've got my little tag pieces here ready to pull out a nice interactive element. And I think it's important to tell those little sub-stories, whether it's a big trip or whether it's just a small moment in time of an afternoon visit out somewhere. You might have the main story to tell, but there are also little other stories that can be told. I don't know if the girls thought that I would actually print this photo of me running away from the bear, but it was hilarious when Katie had done the editing. She didn't mean to cut my arm off at all. The app did that while she was editing it. So it is a little bit funny. It makes me smile. It makes me laugh. I think it's fun to include those sort of memories into your layout, not just the picture perfect ones that make up the story of a wonderful day. I love these little landing strips here, even though I can't see any water in my photos. I know we saw a lot of it as we were driving up to Whistler. And I have another double page layout to come about our drive up to Whistler because the scenery was just beautiful. And the girls were really good. They did stop on our way back so I could get some photos of this majestic landscape. So that's it for this double page spread. I hope you've enjoyed what I've put together with this. I'm really pleased with the colour palette and bringing in the country lace paper rather than using a take to the sky pattern here. I think this colour here has just worked so well, and this pattern, and complements the photos really well. Thank you all for tuning in, everyone. I hope to see you next time. Happy crafting and bye for now.